Welcome to your Saga Oasis. The world is incredibly simple, and people can achieve happiness at any moment. This meaningful quote comes from the book The Courage to be Disliked by Japanese authors Kishimi Ichiro and Koga Fumitake. We often say we want a happy and free life, but few truly understand what freedom means. If the price of freedom is being disliked by others, are you willing to accept it? We usually don't want anyone to hate us and hope that everyone gets along with us. However, living without anyone disliking us is a way of life that lacks freedom. We must adjust ourselves according to their comments and wishes, which makes us feel truly exhausted. If you want to be free, meaning not living according to others' expectations, you might be disliked. However, this is the high price we must pay to achieve freedom. To do this, we need to follow these 3 steps. Step 1. Change your perspective. Interpret events by their purpose, not by their cause. In the theory of psychological trauma by psychologist Sigmund Freud, he suggested that to understand the reasons behind our behaviors, we must trace back to the past. However, if we blindly focus on past causes and try to explain everything based solely on them, we may fall into an endless loop. Mandy is a girl who was bullied and abused by her classmates during her childhood, which caused her to confine herself at home for many years. Whenever she steps outside, she feels extremely terrified. Her heart races, and her hands and legs tremble. Despite this, Mandy always yearns to go out, work, and contribute positively to society. However, the psychological trauma from her past has prevented her from living a normal life in the present. To address Mandy's psychological conflicts, you can refer to the theory of psychiatrist Alfred Adler. According to this theory, no matter what happened in the past, it doesn't affect your life in the following days. What determines your life is the present moment and the purpose behind your actions, not the causes from the past. If you realize that you often procrastinate and avoid difficulties, that action is a choice you make to temporarily avoid stress and fear of failure. If you notice yourself angrily yelling at loved ones, it means you are choosing the purpose of making the other person surrender and admit their faults. If you find yourself avoiding society, closing your heart, and isolating yourself from the outside world, it is because you are choosing to do so in the present to reduce feelings of inferiority and anxiety. Recognizing the purpose behind each of your current actions is the key to truly understanding the deep-seated fears in your soul right now, or the big ego that's driving you to do something. Understanding the purpose behind each action is crucial to changing the current state of your life. If we keep relying on past causes, we will never be able to take a step forward. Note, this doesn't mean denying that painful and unfortunate events from childhood have no impact on shaping our personality. On the contrary, their impact is significant. But the issue lies in the meaning we attach to those past experiences, which is the direct factor that determines our present and future lives. For example, Amy and Helen are 2 classmates who both endured a harsh childhood due to their parents' alcoholism and both mental and physical abuse. As they grew up, Amy always viewed her past as a series of tragic events. She felt like a victim of circumstance, useless and stupid as her parents said, and always believed she could never change or escape this life. In contrast, Helen saw her painful experiences as motivation to quickly escape her dreadful home and toxic parents. She worked hard in school, took on various jobs to gain control over her life, and continuously developed herself. achieving significant accomplishments. The difference here lies in how they attached meaning to their experiences. Life is not given by others. It is chosen by yourself. Your way of living is your own decision. No one can choose their origins, where you are born, the era you live in, and the parents you have are not your choices. These factors can have a significant impact, but if you keep trying to analyze the causes from them, you may feel dissatisfied, inferior, miserable, and blame others for what has happened. You need to understand that the pain and negativity are decisions you make right here and now. It depends on you and has nothing to do with the past or anyone else. Step 2. Recognize and complete your tasks, and your life will become simpler. Wise people have long realized that the root of suffering comes from relationships. This perspective stems from Adler's philosophy, who believed that since humans cannot live in isolation, they must choose a life goal that aligns with this condition, meaning they must strive to build harmonious relationships with others. If we divide life based on its stages and the depth of interpersonal relationships, each person's life includes 3 major issues: work, friendship, and love. The reason you often encounter much suffering and hurt in these relationships is that you have not clearly defined the boundaries. In life, you are either always being interfered with by others, or you are attempting to intrude into someone else's life. This interference breaks boundaries. But what are boundaries, and why are they important in relationships? Have you ever heard of the term Reup limit? In fact, the universe always teaches us how to love and build harmonious relationships with others. The Reup limit refers to the closest distance at which 2 celestial bodies can maintain an interactive relationship without being torn apart by gravitational forces. If they go beyond this distance, the smaller body will be shattered. The distance between the Earth and the Moon is about 384,400 kilometers. If the Moon were to cross the Reup limit, it would break into hundreds of pieces. Similarly, in relationships, if we do not maintain appropriate boundaries, we will experience much suffering and pain. Distinguishing and protecting these boundaries is key to building happy and sustainable relationships. We often see that in relationships, especially in love, pain and hurt are most common among those who sacrifice themselves to please the other person, or those who easily criticize and control others. The outcome for these individuals is often either exhausting themselves to the point of collapse or losing their sense of self and motivation for life. If you are facing trouble and suffering in love, friendship, family, and other relationships, it means the universe is sending you a message that it's time to learn to love yourself. So, how do you love yourself? You need to maintain distance and not cross boundaries in relationships. This is akin to recognizing and completing your own tasks. Your life will become simpler when you focus on yourself and love yourself, rather than trying to interfere with others' tasks. Everything outside of you, including other people, is beyond your control. Stubbornly trying to change or interfere with their tasks will only cause you suffering. If your mother-in-law nags you, that's her task. If your partner treats you coldly, that's their task. If friends don't like you, that's their task. Focusing on the task of loving and taking care of yourself will help you find happiness and peace in relationships. So be brave enough to dare to be disliked. Step 3. 3 ways to establish boundaries. First, give up competition. There is a saying, where there is comparison, there will be sorrow. The pain in the life of a young man came from his parents constantly comparing him to the smart neighbor boy, making him always feel like a loser. As people grow up, it's difficult to escape the consciousness of winning and losing because the spirit of competition is deeply embedded in our traditional culture. Many children are asked to become group leaders or class presidents from a young age. What we hear and see in this society convinces us that the competitive spirit is essential. Without competition, people believe there would be no progress. However, philosophers present an opposing view. The world does not need competition, and individuals do not necessarily have to distinguish between winners and losers. The harm of a competitive mindset is that where there is competition, there will be winners and losers. And where there are winners and losers, there will be friends and enemies. Hostility arises, creating new enmity, and people living with this mindset will always be anxious and uneasy about gains and losses. In such a state, happiness will be as elusive as the moon reflected in water. The more you try to grasp it, the faster it breaks apart. In reality, you can choose another path, which is to abandon competition. When you see others making progress, you don't need to focus on your own weaknesses, but genuinely celebrate their success. When debating with someone, you have the right to believe your perspective is correct while still acknowledging the reasonableness of others' viewpoints. Only when you let go of the desire to compete will you be free from others' interference and refrain from interfering with others' tasks. Second, you need to know how to reject manipulation and control. People who cannot distinguish their own responsibilities from those of others will pay excessive attention to others' opinions, like the young man mentioned earlier. He constantly tries to meet the expectations of his parents and leaders because he values their approval too much. Essentially, he is trying to control others' opinions by adjusting his behavior to gain their recognition. This is a form of manipulation, but in reality, it is impossible and will become a heavy burden for us. We often see controlling relationships disguised as love between spouses, with statements like, "If you love me, you wouldn't do that," or "I've tried so hard, why don't you truly love me?" In parent-child relationships, parents often use their sacrifices as a reason to demand respect and obedience from their children. Such interference or being influenced by others' thoughts will become shackles in interpersonal relationships. Third, you must recognize equality. Another reason we often interfere in others' tasks is the belief that we are superior to others. For instance, "I have more experience, so you should listen to me." Or, "I've walked all the paths you're taking, so don't argue with your parents." Or, "Why can't you even handle such a simple task?" Criticism, judgment, and control are all signs of an unequal relationship. Adler believed that inequality frequently occurs because society tends to maintain vertical relationships, meaning a relationship viewed from top to bottom. He advised us to turn the vertical into horizontal, making equality the core principle. If a vertical relationship starts with rewards and punishments, a horizontal relationship begins with gratitude and encouragement. When you are pleased with someone else's behavior, replace praise with a sincere thank you. When you disagree with something, replace scolding with corresponding encouragement. Interpersonal relationships are the source of pain, but also the source of happiness and courage. Everyone, including you, is imperfect, and when you realize this, You will no longer worry about or interfere with matters of love and hate that inherently belong to others. You don't need to seek recognition from the outside world. You only need to focus on your own heart. You can find happiness at any time, and it is always a gift of the current experience. Yet so many people choose a life lacking in happiness and freedom simply because they don't want to be disliked. Some have sacrificed their own principles and suppressed their true feelings just to meet others' expectations. We hope you have the courage to dare to be disliked. It is also the bravery that will help you be happy in the present and at any moment. It's the end of the video. Thank you for joining us today. And don't miss out on more videos from us by subscribing and turning on the notification bell icon.